What is the smallest way your DM has driven home how evil a villain is? Part 1. I've written about this before, but one time another character got captured by a bad guy, and the bad guy took all her stuff before he put her on a ship to Hawaii, essentially removing her from the campaign. The character was an aspiring writer, and always wrote down our adventures in her journal. She was standing on the dock, stripped down to mundane equipment as the bad guy took everything of value from her bags. The exchange was something like this. Writer: Can I at least keep my journal? Bad guy: Sure, it's worthless. DM ran a campaign where the majority of nobles and heroes had a spiritual bond with a dragon that they rode. The dragon was your soul, your conscience, your best friend, and your closest family. You share a deep mental and emotional bond. You join at birth. The villain rode a red dragon, and when we first met her, she was wearing spurs. Party was invited to a funeral by the Duke, actually a doppelganger, after his daughter was murdered following a series of killings and disappearances. He held a feast at the event in remembrance of her. The group then decided to take a look around and wander into the kitchen by accident, discovering the remains of the Duke's daughter and several other bodies suspended over a cooking fire. Cue vomiting. I have a plan for when my party meets a possible big bad evil guy. His name is Young Earl Caramel, and he basically has no powers except for unlimited wealth and resources. He seems ultra nice at first. He has a feast for the heroes. He'll give them rewards. He'll even invite up 4 orphans to dine with us from the orphanage he pays for. He'll invite my players in as guests, and then offer them a handsome reward if they drink his specialty wine and come into his monster room. When they enter the room, 4 monsters attack them, and they'll finish them off easily. Too easily. After having killed the monsters, the magical power of the wine will fade, and there will be the bodies of the 4 orphans who were invited to the feast. That's who the monsters actually were. Party had befriended an orphan in a small city. BBEG murders/enslaves the majority of people in the city, and the players aren't too happy about it, so they confront the BBEG, whose first action is to put his boot into the side of the orphan's head. Someone who loves or adores the villain and who is constantly working on his behalf. Not just handling assistant stuff, but being thoughtful, like making a lunch, taking care of minor wounds, and arranging for music or other touches to make things less stressful or difficult. The villain treats them like a clockwork tool, ignores them completely, or may honestly not even notice them, thinking it's multiple people that someone hired. It comes through in small slights, little cruelties. He isn't trying to, they just don't matter, and it doesn't occur to him to do otherwise. He doesn't even understand why anyone would think it's a problem. Placed an arcane trap on his baby, so when the party saved the baby from the evil prince, they neglected to check this, forcing everyone, including the infant, to make a save versus Phantasmal Killer. 3.5, so 4 people, including the baby, died from the spell. Party was chasing a ranger bad guy through the mountains. Not brilliant already. They are getting ambushed twice a day, getting shot at from hundreds of feet away, and they can never find the guy. They finally run out of arrows to shoot back and retreat to a small village. The village has a Fletcher, but he is fresh out of arrows. A guy came in the day before yesterday and bought him out. The players howled. We were imprisoned by the big bad evil guy, later to escape. He put my pet wolf across the hall from me and let me watch it starve to death. I threw half my meals across the hall trying to feed it, but the food never made it through his bars. I, as a player, after saving a group of hapless farmers, demanded to be paid with a young child. Classical fairy tale witch was what I was going for. So the party is basically chilling in town between missions, taking a moment to rest and relax. A little girl approaches one of the party members and tells them that she's got a message she is supposed to read to them. Highly advanced city, everyone was taught how to read and write in school. She pulls out a scroll and reads a message from it that's basically taunting the player and providing a hint as to the next story arc. The last thing the little girl read was, also, I memorized explosive runes today. Cue fireworks. Party was tailing the big bad evil guy in a crowded marketplace. A beggar approaches big bad evil guy and gets sworn at. The beggar tries to say something like, God's bless you, and the BBEG responds by flipping him off with Mage Hand. had built up a campaign over a couple years to end up in this church. The players knew it was a trap, but one of those level 19 quests, world is in danger, have to go scenarios. Started at 3, so you can imagine the investment. Characters execute plan, get into the church, and the main character sees the woman he loved a life ago that he only mentioned in his backstory 2 years ago. He was a bard. She is strapped to the altar and about to be sacrificed. Plan is scrapped. They grab her, they vault through the only window available to them, right into the abyss. And she stops herself from escaping with them, turns to the evil cleric, kisses him, and laughs. Honestly, the best moment I have ever had in gaming. Forest of the Dead, Vlad the Impaler style, but with orphans from the orphanage they saved a couple weeks back, with a message written in blood. You've only begun to see my havoc. Party invited to a banquet. Things seem off, like there was tension in the air, but you couldn't figure out what it was coming from. The host, an elf of noble lineage, says he must attend to some matters and leaves the room. While he's gone, listen to the other banquet attendees and find out children have been going missing in the area for a while, and the elf noble was throwing this banquet to help ease everyone's minds. Something's still off. Our thief feigns sick to leave the table and sneak around. As the meal is nearly finished, the rogue returns. He insists we leave immediately and gets nauseous when we mention taking the rest of the food offered to us. Outside the castle, he explains what he saw. He snuck around and things seemed normal for the most part. In the kitchen, though, the host was sampling the raw meat used to make the meal. The meat was the missing children. That was a messed up session. A succubus had just killed Hans, my paladin's best, possibly only friend. Hans kept stabbing at her with his rapier, but to no avail. She disarmed Hans and examined the rapier, complimenting the quality and asking where he got it. Hans didn't want to say it was a gift from his parents, but his lack of an answer told her more than enough. She gave the rapier back, and as he raised it again, it exploded into tiny shards, taking off his hand with it. Once, the DM had a merc leader who was just a jerk. Didn't attack the party or anything, but he had a small dog that he kept around to beat whenever he got mad or when it was fun for him. Based solely on that, the party hated him more than the big bad evil guy. 2 of my players are gnomish brothers who were exiled for releasing a necrophage upon their outpost community, killing most people they grew up with. In reality, they were working for someone they called the Aurum, doing arcane research into undeath. They know that it was the traitor Aurum who released the necrophage and have been pursuing him since their escape from the dwarven authorities. Recently, one of the brothers relived a repressed memory in which he is coerced by the traitor Aurum to murder a helpless sacrifice, a gnome he was casually familiar with, in order to advance the traitor Aurum's research. It has brutalized the character's psyche badly and made him question whether or not he's actually a good guy at all. The rest of the party has watched him struggle with the memory and are beyond convinced of the traitor Aurum's evil. 2 words: ruthless aggression. The villain knows what he or she wants and will stop at nothing to get it. Maybe it is revenge. Maybe it is power. But whatever it is, thousands can die if it helps the villain get it. And he or she won't care as long as that goal is achieved. Have the players be caught up in the sack of a completely normal town, where their villain is having every other person in town killed because no one will give the villain what he or she wants, and the players cannot stop it because they just are not strong enough to stand up to the full might of the villain's army. Have them come upon the corpse of the good knight who had defended his land for years, brutalized by torture. Have the knight's wife be in an even worse state, and then there is some symbol of the villain, with the words,
"To those who stand in my way, this is your fate."
Eventually, the players can see that what their enemy desires is rather important. It might even be something the players sympathize with. But by then, they should be certain that the villain has to be stopped. I made a man named the Prophet. He claimed to be ascended and to live righteously. He had very strict rules about his commune. Dull, drab clothes, separation of sexes, no going out at night, told people how filthy they were, led congregation in abyssal chants, which they thought were prayers. He only said the players need to follow the rules as visitors and never once threatened them. He displayed a power to the characters. A woman was whipped for breaking the rules. Afterwards, he told the commune we all share her suffering. He necrotically damage transferred the wound from her by touching each of the commune, and their hands came away bloody. He kept teenage girls in white for ascension. Most were already pregnant. He'd kill the girls in white by cutting out their baby, then turned them into ghouls. They'd eat their babies. The reason you didn't go out at night was the ghouls patrolled at night with their mutilated bellies. The prophet used a minor artifact called the Heart of Darkness, an onyx heart wrapped with golden barbed wire. It let him do the damage transfer, animate ghouls, and summon shadows from the sacrificed infants. The players noped out of there. He was actually very weak stat-wise, but they thought he was beyond badass. Certainly evil. Big Bad Evil Guy has the party working for him as slaves, uses them to build up his empire and squelch rebellion. Family and even PCs have been killed for disobeying. They all plan to one day join him or murder him. BBEG has a sheltered daughter who escapes from her cage, actual cage, and hides in an abandoned part of the city every couple of days. Party eventually finds her, and she's not right in the head. Sheltered her entire life, knows barely anything. They're asking her questions, and eventually the sorceress asks if she even knows what a pig is. She doesn't, so she conjures the image of one for her. The daughter instantly loves it, says it's adorable, she wants one. They soon come back with a wood carving of one, so she can keep it with her while she's in her cage. Story progresses. They become close friends with her, and many months later they come across the daughter one day in her normal hiding spot. She's crying. Had a large, bleeding bruise across her face, backhanded by a metal gauntlet, and she tells them he found her pig carving and burned it in front of her. Of all the evil things the Big Bad Evil Guy has done to them or forced them to do, this one stood out the most. This act is the one that made the party swear one day they'll find him when he's weak and murder the out of him. Hello, my scrumptious little love muffins. Thank you so much for watching this video. We are so glad to have you here with us. In case you weren't aware, Rip Senpai has never actually played a game of Dungeons & Dragons.
NANI?
I know. I tried calling the police, and it turns out you can't place somebody in a different country on an involuntary psychiatric hold over the phone, or across international waters for that matter. So instead of committing his foine ass, we're gonna make it play some fucking D&D instead, live, on this channel. 50,000 subs. So please sub for the cure, fam, or just sub for Nat 20s. Or both. I won't judge. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.